So we're here in Campbell, California. We're looking at police officers responding to a call and de-escalating the situation. And they're doing exactly what they're trained to do, which is to talk to the person, make sure the person's not a threat. So these kinds of interactions are difficult, especially now with COVID. So that's one of the reasons the officers are wearing latex gloves and, of course, masks. And before I started recording, I let the officers know I was behind them at a safe distance. Campbell is a small town. It's really a small city, but it's known as a town. San Jose PD has had some issues, but not Campbell. When we talk about good practices and bad practices, it's almost really based on what the city itself wants to do and how they train their officers. So one of the reasons you see different approaches being used is because each city has its own way of handling these kinds of situations. Each city has its own protocol. And that's what makes us a republic, which is that, you can divide up all these responsibilities in a way that allows you to figure out what the best practices are, as opposed to depending on a centralized system or a one-way system. And so some cities have decided that it's not worth it to have police officers who are highly paid and highly trained to deal with these situations, and so they've created a program called CSOs, Community Service Organizations. And so a CSO who does not have a gun would be the one that would come down and de-escalate the situation, because that would be what that CSO would be trained to do. Whereas a police officer has to deal with the potential for threats and the potential for violence. And so it's not necessarily the case that you want the same people trained to deal with gangs being involved in these kinds of interactions. It's expensive, it's time consuming. It's not what the officer signed up to do. The reason I'm recording is I don't actually know Campbell PD's protocol. I don't know if they're told to arrest, if given a complaint of trespassing. I don't know if they're told to just do a cite and release. I don't know what the protocol is. It doesn't have to be trespassing. It could be loitering or something else. But Campbell, being one of the smaller cities, has a fairly well-funded police department, so it's likely that they've got one of the better response teams in place. So after speaking with the man, they now have probable cause to detain him. So you notice they didn't arrest him right away. They didn't detain him right away. We still don't know whether it's an arrest. It could be a detention, although he's clearly not free to move. But you'll notice that this is a very well-trained police department. They made sure they had probable cause. And again, this is not surprising because Campbell is a small city. These police officers know most of the people in these places. If this person is a regular, they probably know who he is. It's the big city departments that have issues because they don't know who's in their community. They don't know who's who's just passing through. And I'm not suggesting that small police departments everywhere in the U.S. are honest and forthright. It just so happens that this is a well-funded police department in a smaller city. And because they're well-trained, you'll notice that there was no issue when they made the arrest, and it is now obviously an arrest. I'm going to just go around the corner here. And that's part of the de-escalation training, so you don't have to escalate. But notice the police resources involved here. You've got not one, but two police cars, which is standard procedure. You don't want one police officer showing up by himself. You want to make sure that somebody's looking, as the military says, watching their six. And again, they're checking everything to make sure, to ensure everyone's safety. That article of clothing will be checked into the police department's storage. And it could be recovered by the gentleman at a later time, although in many cases they're just not recovered. So it becomes a property of the state or the city. But again, look at the resources involved. And this is why you're shifting into a dual structure within police departments. So now you're having police officers, but also CSOs that do not have guns and do not have tasers. Although some departments are allowing CSOs to have tasers, but not guns. And one of the shifts in police departments all over the country is that you'll notice just the weaponry that this gentleman has over here in the police department. He's wearing a bulletproof vest, he's got a gun, he's got a taser. And that's part of the alignment between the military and the police post 9/11. It's not just the equipment, it's also the protocols and the procedures. And you already have a hierarchy system within the police. I don't know if it's, they don't have any stripes. So they're not lieutenants, they're not, they're just normal police officers. A captain or a lieutenant would have a stripe on his or her shoulder or arm. So I suppose in one sense we're dealing with a good enough security or software system that sends out the quote-unquote lower level police officers to handle these issues. And Campbell's got one of the best mottos. It's got to protect and serve with integrity. I love that motto. Now, the joke is that LAPD's motto is to protect and serve with impunity. But of course, LAPD, LA also is it's so vast. It also has a sheriff's department, and the sheriff's department has not had the corruption scandals, as far as I know, as LAPD itself. So when you're looking at somebody in a uniform, you want to look at whether they have stripes on their shoulders or on their arms, whether it is police. Are you dealing with police, or are you dealing with a more independent sheriff? But again, look at the time and resources and patience that had to be utilized for one person. And it doesn't stop there. Now they're going to take him down to the jail, probably in Santa Clara County, because again, the city does not run the jails. It's the county that runs the jails. So that he gets handed off most likely to a different department within the state, or in this case, the county. You're going to deal with even more resources. And that should do it.